Culture sits in the background of an organisation. It's the collective patterns of behaviour and thinking. It's the rituals. It's the habits. It's kind of like the personality of the organisation. Adrian McLean and Judy Marshall gave a nice formal definition of culture in their paper Intervening in Cultures. They defined culture as the collection of traditions, values, policies, beliefs and attitudes that constitute a pervasive context for everything we do and think in an organisation. In this video, I want to introduce the idea of organisational culture. Culture can make people feel good about their organisation at its best, but at its worst, it can bring people down. It can leave them feel frustrated, upset, even fearful. And we describe an organisational culture as strong if it is both deeply held and held widely amongst a large proportion of the organisation's members. An organisational culture has big consequences for its organisation in terms of things like staff motivation and hence in productivity, in the interactions with other organisations and other people like customers, suppliers, consultants and partner organisations, not to mention regulators and audit organisations. Culture influences choices and decision-making processes, and it creates the methods of control that the organisation uses, both formally and informally, by either facilitating or blocking certain modes of communication. And finally, because culture dictates the way the organisation interacts with society, it also determines the public perception of the organisation. Most often, organisational culture is a reflection of the wider culture within which the organisation sits. Often, it amplifies some elements of that culture, but equally, it could subvert or even invert some aspects of the wider society. The easiest way to think of how an organisational culture arises is that it arises from how we do things around here. This means that if we can successfully change the modes of operation, the habits of the people in the organisation, then we can also successfully shift the culture of the organisation. In doing this, there are often a small number of informal leaders who will have a disproportionate impact on the way we think about the organisation, on its culture. Their actions, their choices, and indeed their words can often have a huge impact, for good or for ill, on the culture of the organisation. But let's not forget that big organisations, and sometimes small organisations, don't always have a uniform culture throughout the organisation. What we often find is subcultures within different parts of the organisation, reflecting differences in the regional affiliations of the parts of the organisation, or maybe the functional work that they do, or even the divisional leadership and the style that that leadership sets for their division. In many ways, this behaves in just the same way as a national culture. It's common to find different regional subcultures within any one national culture. Indeed, it's not just regions. There are often social cultures within the wider national culture, reflecting differences in values, political affiliations, heritage, religion. All manner of things come together to form a culture, both nationally and within an organisation. And if you're wondering how important organisational culture is, then we need to look to the saying that is often, but I must say without a lot of evidence, attributed to Peter Drucker. The saying, "culture eats strategy for breakfast," suggests that no matter how good your strategy is, if it is not consistent with the culture of the organisation, then that strategy is likely to fail. The truth, of course, is that culture and strategy are both important. And what really matters is that the one is aligned with the other. If you need to shift the organizational strategy significantly, then you will need to do work to shift the culture accordingly. The upshot of all of this is that understanding organizational culture is important for any manager, particularly if you're involved in change or in the strategy of the organization. So in the series of videos that follow this one, we'll be looking at what different authors and thinkers have come up with as ways of understanding organizational culture. Please do give a thumbs up if you like this video. There's loads more great management courses content to come, so please do subscribe to our channel and hit the notification bell so you don't miss any of it. I'll look forward to seeing you in the next video, and in the meantime, keep learning.